I'm joined now in the studio by the co-convener of the Scottish Greens, Patrick Harvie, and by the Scottish Socialist Party's Colin Fox. From Edinburgh is historian Michael Fry, and also in Edinburgh is Iain Macwhirter, columnist with The Herald. Thank you all very much for joining us this evening. Patrick Harvie, are you heading down to the cinema tomorrow morning?
I will be at the event tomorrow. Most Greens, every time it's been put to our party conference, do share the view that independence is one of the things that we need, one part of the conditions that we need for the kind of transformational politics that Greens represent. Our politics doesn't begin with national identity or with the Constitution. It begins with change in society and in the economy. And most of us believe that we're comfortable being a party with a range of views inside the party, but most of us tend to the view that independence is one of the preconditions. It's not an end result in itself. It's not the end game as some in the SNP describe it, but it's one of the preconditions for the change in society that we want to see.
You're going along tomorrow. What part have you played in organising the Yes Scotland campaign?
Tomorrow is, I'm sorry to say, only the beginning of the need to build a stronger, more participative campaign. It is going to have to become something that goes way beyond the SNP, partly because of some of the arguments you had in that film there. The SNP, to me, seemed to be wanting to be all things to all people. You know, vote yes for progressive centre-left values and for tax cuts for big business. Vote yes for renewables and for 50 years more oil and gas extraction. I think that over time, and the closer we get to 2014, the vision is going to have to become clearer than that. There's going to have to be a clear, compelling and transformational case as to why people should do something very radical in creating a new independent country. I don't think a bland middle-of-the-road message is going to convince the undecided people.
Had you had anything to do with organising this?
I've had discussions with folk in the SNP, but...
Have you put up any cash?
No.
Are you putting any activists on the roads, on the streets at the moment?
Frankly, the SNP has far more money than the Greens have. We run things on a shoestring as it is. We don't have multi-millionaire
Colin Fox,
donors.
what is the SSP doing to help out the independence cause?
Well, I mean, tomorrow's launch of the Yes Scotland campaign is an exciting event. It's the start, as Patrick said, of a beginning. It's the starting pistol, isn't it, of the referendum race proper. The Scottish Socialist Party's been involved with the Scottish Independence Convention for 7 years now. So we'll work with our partners in the Greens, our partners in the SNP, and across Civic Scotland. And, you know, the Scottish Socialist Party brings a radical socialist part to that partnership. We're in favour of an independent socialist Scotland.
How many boots on the ground and how much money are you going to contribute towards the campaign?
Well, we'll be putting everything we've got into it. The Scottish Socialist Party for 13 years now has been committed to independence, so our party's boots on the ground, our activists, and more importantly, our ideas will be put in part of this movement.
The reason I ask is, people might fairly say tomorrow's event is essentially going to be dominated by the SNP, a party who are dominating Scottish politics currently and have lots of money in the bank. So they're really in charge of this campain. You guys, well, you might be looking from the sidelines, but that's going to be
I've met with Angus Robertson, I've met with the Yes Scotland campaign team, and I've been given assurances that I'm happy to accept that the SSP and the Greens will play a full part in this movement going forward.
So what deal have you struck then?
No, struck any deals. What we're talking about is we're reaffirming our commitment to the fight for independence and
Raymond,
reaffirming
if you're
our
suggesting
commitment
that the SNP is actually a bigger party and a richer party than either the Greens or the SSP, I can exclusively reveal that that's the truth.
Shock horror.
Michael Fry, is there a chance, do you think, that the SNP will be able to demonstrate to people in Scotland that there is a broad coalition in favour of independence and the Yes Scotland campaign is more than just the SNP under a different branding?
Well, it has to be that. I mean, every opinion poll for a long time has shown that the actual core support for Scottish independence is running, you know, say about 30% of the electorate, sometimes a bit more, sometimes a bit less, but at that kind of level. So, I mean, it's perfectly clear that if you're going to get up to 50%, which is what you need to win a referendum, then you have to bring in a lot of other people whose commitment may be far from fanatical, but are prepared to give independence a go and can be won over by the various arguments that Alex Salmond has been
But
putting
how do
over.
you do that in practical terms when you have
Well,
such a
just
dominant partner?
Okay, well, just look at what he's done. I mean, he has gathered support from the left and from the right. He is all things to all men, but he's got to be that. I mean, once we get on the other side of the referendum, if Scotland does become an independent country, that is the time when you start separating out and fighting all these other political battles. But for the SNP, obviously, independence is the central political battle. So it doesn't surprise me that they will say and do whatever it takes to achieve that goal. I don't see how anyone can be at all amazed that that is their line. And they've been pursuing it, pretty successfully ever since they came into government.
Iain Macwhirter, should I describe you as a nationalist nowadays? I read your column earlier on suggesting you thought it was inevitable.
Well, I think it probably is. But one of the things the SNP has done very successfully under Alex Salmond is they've made the concept of independence so flexible that all manner of people can now support it, including people who, like myself, who have described ourselves as federalists, and could certainly see myself voting for it were there not to be a second question on the ballot paper offering devolution, max, or independence, like whatever you like to call it. That does seem to be a vanishing proposition. It seems there's going to be one question, at least that's how it looks at the moment, but we are getting ahead of ourselves. But it's such a broad church now. I mean, I think that, I'm always thinking we should launch a Unionists for Independence campaign because it's become so broad that just about anybody can support it. Now,
And isn't that the danger, though? That
exactly, there is a danger here.
If you have all these voices in the one room, then no one hears anything.
There is a danger that the whole concept becomes so diffuse that people say, well, look, what's the difference? Maybe we should just carry on as we are. We're going to keep the pound, we're going to keep the Queen, we're going to keep the Bank of England setting interest rates. What really is the meaning of independence? And that, I think, will be the task facing the SNP over the next 2 years. But a more immediate task, I think, is the one of making it relevant, given that we are seeing such epic developments across Europe. Remember, the SNP is very much a pro-European party, which in the past supported Scottish membership of the single currency. We're now seeing something very close to an economic depression settling over Europe. And at times like that, I'm afraid people will tend to see constitutional change as a bit of a luxury that they can't afford at this time.
And Patrick Harvie, that raises the question, I suppose, of timing, which is this Yes Scotland launch is happening, 2.5 years before Alex Salmond's preferred referendum date. Do you think that length of campaign is an advantage or a disadvantage?
I think it's completely necessary because what we've just heard over the last few minutes is an accurate description of a bland, middle-of-the-road message. And it's not that Is
that Iain Macwhirter's message or a description of Alex Salmond's?
The description, both from Michael and from Iain, is accurate. That what the SNP have done is put together this idea that we're all things to all people and that independence is all things to all people.
So Patrick Harvie is going to sex it up from tomorrow, are you?
The problem, far be it from me, the problem is that it's not just about getting over the line, as some SNP activists describe it. It's not just about winning the end game. Independence would be the beginning of something transformational. And unless we can describe to people what that change looks like, what independence is actually for, not that it's for Peter de Bink to say the problem with the status quo is that big businesses don't get to avoid paying tax. The problem is the very opposite of that. If we're not able to identify the things that are wrong with the status quo and the things that would be transformational about independence, then I don't think the undecided people are going to bother to go and put an X on a piece of paper. It might feel comfortable for the SNP 2.5 years out to take this universalist approach, but the closer we get to the referendum, the more that vision is going to have to be developed. And that's why it's necessary to get beyond the SNP and beyond all political parties and form something that actually captures people's excitement and vision about what Scotland could become.
Colin Fox, how is this going to work then? So somebody will be sitting at home, the door will knock, they'll go to the door and find SNP activists telling them they'd like to cut corporation tax and keep the Queen, keep the pound, and then the next night the door will knock again, then SSP activists will knock on their door who says they want a republic, they want big taxes on big business, and they're going to leave that potential voter very confused indeed, aren't they?
Well, you know, the handbag that we're all dancing around here, if I can put it that way, is that this boils down to whether or not the independence movement can persuade the people of Scotland that they're going to be economically better off, they're going to be socially better off, they're going to be politically better off and democratically better off. If we can't, we're not going to win. And from the Scottish Socialist Party's point of view, the biggest issue facing the people of Scotland just now is the toughest economic times in 80 years. This is the vote winner. Independence has got to persuade the people of Scotland that by independence we can avoid a return to the hungry 30s. We can avoid a time with great, deprivation, hardship. Because these are the times that people are going through, and independence, relative to that, if we can persuade them that they'll be economically, socially, culturally, politically better off, we can win the independence debate, and that's the job of all of us.
Michael Fry, where do you think this... Michael Fry, where do you think this message is heading then? Because we've got such a long time for it to be developed. What do you think will be the central themes by the time we get to the autumn of 2014? Will it be a vision which is more akin to Peter de Vink or more akin to Colin Fox?
Well, I would say it would be very foolish of Alex Salmond just to make glib promises that everything is going to be better. I mean, and I don't think he has been doing that. What he is saying is that in Scotland we will have the tools to do what we want to do. We won't be running to London all the time for more money and running up against the barriers of the devolution settlement. We will have the tools to do what we want to do. And we don't have those at the moment. And that seems to me, we may do things well or we may do things badly. And I'm sure, as a political community, as a nation, we will learn from our experience. We'll do some wrong things and we'll have to correct them. But for him to go around glibly saying everything will be better, you will all be richer, well, that is a recipe for disillusion and for ultimate failure. But I'm very glad to say that Alex Salmond is not doing that. That's why he's got 65 seats in the Parliament, Patrick Harvie has 2, and Colin Fox has none.
Iain Macwhirter, are the people of Scotland going to be bored by the entire campaign come 2014?
Well, there's a great difficulty. Just on this economic question, I think what the SNP has achieved actually has won the economic argument over the last 5 years, at least to this extent, that people are no longer afraid of the idea of Scotland being alone and isolated and impoverished on the fringes of Europe. I think people accept now that Scotland could be a viable proposition, more than viable. If you look at the latest licenses, the applications for licenses to drill on the North Sea oil, you can see that North Sea oil is by no means over. The offshore wind, the renewable energy is now delivering 28,000 jobs in Scotland. So I think the SNP have managed to win that argument, but unfortunately they've won it precisely at the moment when the entire economic pack of cards is collapsing around their ears through developments in Europe, through something coming close now to the prospect of a global economic depression. And it's going to be very difficult, I think, for them to move beyond saying that Scotland could very well be like Denmark, could be like Norway, could be like Finland, to say that it can actually withstand those kinds of economic hurricanes alone. And that's what people are going to say. They're going to say, well, sterling is a safe haven at the moment. Maybe we should stick to the safe haven of the United Kingdom when there are all these storms coming from the continent.
Michael Fry, should Scotland become independent, will it lead to a renaissance for the right?
Well, after independence, Scotland will be faced with the realities of the world. And at the moment, a very large part of Scottish politics is just shadowboxing. It's just promising everybody everything, as people have just been complaining. But once you get past independence, then the real world impinges, and you have to make decisions to meet that. So I don't think independence is a never land. Independence is a world of realities, sometimes grim realities, but you do have a pretty full panoply of tools to deal with the job. That's the difference that it makes.
What's happening in the real world and the real economy right now should sound the death knell for the neoliberal centre-right economic model that's been dominant. And if independence, if the idea of independence becomes captured by an idea of simply reproducing those same centre-right mistakes in Scotland that were perpetuated in London and around the world, that's not a compelling vision. That's not a sense that we're going to have an opportunity for a better, fairer, more equal society. I don't think many people will vote for that kind of promise of let's repeat London's mistakes in Edinburgh.
Okay, enjoy the party
We will.
or the gathering tomorrow if you're getting to go along. Gentlemen, thank you all very much indeed for joining us. Patrick Harvie, Colin Fox, Michael Fry and Iain Macwhirter.